This is Katie Bacchus, writer of episode 815, The Russian Knot. You're listening to the Blacklist Exposed on Golden Spiral Media.
Unfortunately, Aaron, the bee's knees, you are not. Welcome to the award-winning The Blacklist Exposed podcast. Greetings, one and all. I'm Agent Troy Heinrichs.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. It's true. My friends also call me Peanut. I got a very small bladder. That is the truth. I am really trying to talk to you right now and level with all of you.
At least 4 times during the show.
Thanks for joining us yet again for another no-number episode on the Blacklist, The Russian Knot, written by Katie Bacchus and directed by Juan Avella. Show notes and other intel for this episode of The Blacklist Exposed can be found where you say, at theblacklistexposed.com.
Do you think these no-number episodes, there used to be special, do you feel like we are extending our lack of there's only really 2 spots left in the top 10 and we're getting close to the end of the season, so we can't really put any more numbers on the list?
No, I think, how do you put a number on a typewriter? You know, I mean, essentially it's a fancy Russian typewriter. So I don't know if you could throw a number on there. That's all. I mean, I really did think it was going to be much more, we're going to get some serious backstory, some mythology. Like they're just using that to show some code breaking times in Red's past or something, or whoever's past. And nope, it just didn't get a number because it's a typewriter.
I'm interested in why they chose the Russian knot, because I mean, the Russian knot is technically a way to take 2 pieces of rope and you tie theoretically like a slip knot on one end of the rope and on one side and a slip knot on the other end of the rope on the other side. So when you pull the ropes together, the slips go towards each other and then you can't actually pull the rope apart. So that's how you tie 2 pieces of rope together.
Feels like you just explained why they call it that. It's an allegory.
I mean, because you have 2 typewriters, 1 on each side?
Or Liz and Red, or Wrestler and Liz, or, any number. Take it however you want.
Red and Anne's daughter?
There's multiple variations of that synopsis that would work for an allegory. Sure.
But the device itself was called the Russian knot.
Right, but it's still an allegory. I mean, really, that's what an allegory. But it also goes with one person on each side, pulls it together, you got a message. That's probably what it means. That's probably the simplest terms.
Sure. Makes sense.
So maybe stop overthinking it, Troy, and we'd be done with the podcast by now.
All right. Well, I'll conclude this week's episode. No, we're just getting started. We go over our profiling question from last week, then into the case profile, and then special agent intel from all of you to finish out the show. Could be about anything from this episode or even past episodes. We don't care. We'll just like to hear from you. And hear from you we have over the last couple of weeks, so keep the comments coming. But first, what was our profiling question last week, Aaron?
Who's really to blame for what happened to Anne? Liz or Red? Oh, I'm so shocked. 70% of you said Liz's fault. Yeah, she never gets a break. Everybody picks on her. 20% said Red, 10% said Anne. Well, at least Red got more than Anne. Jesus. Really?
Even though Anne's the correct answer, but...
Yeah, well, it's kind of her fault. She should have just waited it out.
I mean, I just do not understand the hate for Liz. I mean, maybe a little bit at the end of this episode, but...
Literally nothing I saw several times where people were, trying to hunt me down and to argue with me about this, but there's so much more that that Liz has done than Red has done. I'm like, not a single thing. Not a single thing has she done that Red has not also done. But you're cool when he does it because it's cool. So I guess is what you're looking at.
They probably would say Townsend's even more likable than Liz.
Which is ridiculous.
And he's an ass. Which
is ridiculous. Yeah. Just a loon. He's always throwing plastic bags on his henchmen. Who does that?
Well, we're in a predicament here for next week, Aaron, because it's kind of like the show's stalled at this point. We need to figure out what's going to happen next. So what do you think a good question for next week would be? Maybe something around our Eastern friend.
What are we mobilizing assets for?
That works for me.
Okay.
What are we mobilizing assets for? Who's even mobilizing the assets?
I'll give you another question. Why is Gamora? Just had an endgame anniversary and I've watched it two times in the last week.
Oh my goodness. That's precious. Oh. Yeah, but I mean why are we mobilizing and who is mobilizing? I'm assuming Red is telling the Eastern friend to mobilize assets. Or do we think
No, it's the other way around.
The other way around.
Yeah, that was coming back. Yep. Red was saying crisis diverted. Eastern friends like mobilize assets. So for what?
For what purpose? We'll
what? Why are we mobilizing assets?
Soon. Next week we'll find out. But before Paula hits us up for another reimbursement, let's go ahead and get to this week's case profile.
Well, if you never listened before, we always break down the crux of the episode and then we break down the characters. Well, we're going to get the characters really quick because the episode was about getting a Russian knot, a decryption device that will help decode the messages to our friend from the East back and forth. That's the story. That's it.
So let's talk a little bit about the breakout plan. Do you like Rudiger's? Do you like Rudiger's concrete heat expansion concept or no?
Oh, I like that. That was actually kind of cool. I thought it was funny that we had to wait and everybody's just hanging around, and then you do have the moment where Liz is on the phone and he's waiting for her, and I think I liked him a lot this episode. He kind of added some laughs along the way.
Yeah, if you were to say stack rank the episode, who is the best characters of this episode, I think it's definitely Rudiger and Paula. If those two weren't in this episode, it might not be as good as it was.
I really feel like, the episode was enjoyable. I don't think if I were to rewatch the season, I would probably skip the episode. It's not that it's a bad episode. Please understand me. I just don't think there's really anything here that is a standalone episode. It's not really a standalone. It's more like a bridge, but it's a bridge that I don't really feel like, okay, all right, I got what you're saying. I don't really need to go through that again. That's the wrong way to say it. That came across.
No, I think you're absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? The episode, it's not impactful on the season, nor as a standalone episode. So I don't really need. I would probably skip it, and I do that with a lot of when it's a network show. It's 22 episodes. If I'm rewatching them, if I know one doesn't really a big portion of the story, or it's not a really strong standalone, I just kind of skip it, and it's nothing against the episode necessarily. It doesn't mean it's not enjoyable. Time matters to me. That's what I'm saying.
And I think in this case, for this one, there's a lot of weirdness in this episode. For example, the previous episode we heard that when I was going through my mother's things, right? Liz is talking to Skip on the plane. We're going through my mother's things. Mm-hmm. Well, we see where the mother's things are, which is the storage locker in the middle of nowhere. And I'm just why would a criminal keep her stuff in a storage locker instead of some secret warehouse or buried underground? Or the Kenyan family had
easily
a whole compound in the
mobile,
woods.
Easily accessible, mobile, get you out of there.
I guess. She was moving with the Osterman Umbrella Company, so moving usually requires a storage locker. So
I just feel like we're kind of pulling rabbits out of hats. We're keep getting more stuff from this magical storage locker, and I guess now. It feels very much like we're at the point where you either have to accept that was Liz's mom, and therefore she's doing all this for those reasons, and that's understandable. But because of what Red said, and people are beholden to what Red said, that she's not your mother, da 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 da. So they're beholden to that. So they're saying no, it was definitely a fake. Well, if it ends up being the case, that's going to really, really add to the fans that have disdain for the character of Liz. You know what I mean? Because it's going to make her look dumb. So I'm actually really hoping it was Katerina the whole time, it was Katerina. And when he said that's not really your mother, he meant because she left you and she never really took care. I'm hoping that was what he meant by that, because he always speaks and like you said, lexical ambiguity and all that. I'm hoping that's what it is, because I really think it would be a disservice to the character at this point based on everything she's done to now.
But I think this is another one of those classic things like Rosfiat, where Liz is interpreting what she wants to hear and wants to see and wants to think from the information being given to her.
Reasonably, though.
Sure.
I get where she's coming from all the way across the board. All the people argue with me and tell me, how do you understand that? Well, because I watched the show. Yeah, I get it. I'm not saying I would go and kill innocent people, but I don't think Red should either. So there you go. I think it's wrong across the board.
Because she's interpreting that because Red killed her mother, that all this information that she's collected in this magical hat that she has in the storage locker is specifically about Raymond Reddington, Red Reddington, right? Where she could have just been like looking into the Friend from the East's organization or other Russian affiliated things, and it has nothing to do with Red at all, right? So Liz is jumping to conclusions in that regard, saying that it must be about Red, but it's probably not about Red. It's probably about Red's people that he's trying to infiltrate, and maybe Red's an actual asset that's trying to do the same thing that her mother was doing. So it could be a lot of different things that Liz is getting wrong in this whole concept.
Could be. I still think that hurts the character overall. You make her look like a dum-dum. And you don't want, I don't think you want to do that. I think you want to have truth on her side, even if it's not the whole truth. You know what I mean? She has to come down where it's still Red. It's still somewhat on Red's head that he could have stopped her from going this far if he just would have sat her down and had a conversation with her. But because he didn't, if it doesn't come down to that, you know, it becomes very hard to accept the character from that point forward. You don't want to put yourself in a position like that when you're a TV show. I don't think.
But I mean, she's been gullible the whole time. And I don't think it would be a complete,
I don't like gullible.
completely.
You and I disagree on gullible. I don't like that
the wrong word, but
the whole woman, her whole life has been destroyed by this whole thing that's happened since he came back into her life. And, you know, people say, well, you did it to protect her. Okay, well, he's ripped her life apart. Her life was going around fine. I mean, sure, she had a plant in her life. Well, he put him there too. So, I mean, basically everything that's gone wrong is because of Raymond Reddington. Whether you like it or not, I ain't going to have this talk again for 400 times.
Well, no, but
gullible implies that she's a sucker. I don't think she's a sucker. I think there's some times where she's impulsive. That's fine. That's the character.
I think that's the better word. I think impulsive is the better word. That's a
character trait.
She gets a nugget of information, and then based on that nugget of information, she assumes a whole heck of a lot based on that nugget of info. And she's been wrong every single time that it happened.
You know who could salvage that problem?
Dembe?
The guy that could, Dembe. There you go. Dembe could.
I mean, the show would be over if Dembe actually, told the truth, but.
Yeah. I've been asked like 4 times this week, do you still empathize with Liz even after Anne? I'm like, yeah. Anne's in the situation. Why? Because of Red. Liz didn't bring Anne into this. Red did. So it's on Red.
Totally is. I did like
because I hate to tell you, Red would have done the exact same thing Liz did. Totally would have manipulated the situation for his benefit. Totally would have. Does it all the time. Even with innocence.
I have 2 moments of this episode that were laugh out loud, but not in a laugh out loud type of way.
Okay.
It's a 50-year-old piece of machinery in a museum in a dust-free case.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to explode the floor and create a bunch of dust. And then when it lands, it's going to land perfectly on the ground and not get destroyed or move from the platform that it's on.
He was very careful with where he put those little holes.
Whether you do a hole and the column drops, the column is still dropping 20 feet to the ground, that when the concrete hits the other concrete, that typewriter is going to move on the concrete. I mean, that was a little bit of a stretch.
Lands just like a pedestal. Holds upright. I'm a total faith. It's a TV show. I don't care.
But then
it's a heist. Every heist is stupid, as far as I'm concerned. Every heist is improbable because all the cameras would have caught you, even if you rigged them. So, that's why everybody gets caught.
And then Liz runs away, and Wrestler picks up the bag, and he goes over to Park to check on Park, and then Wrestler just drops the thing on the ground. It's like thunk.
That was funny.
I was like, it's a 50-year-old typewriter, man. What are you doing? Treat it with some love, for God's sakes.
Wrestler don't give a bleep.
He's like, oh my gosh, Park, you're the only one I haven't slept with yet in the task force. Let me check on you. I
totally, speaking of things that I liked, I really did dig the Handmaid's Tale getaway. I thought that was kind of cool, where everybody's got the same red sweatshirt or whatever.
Well, I mean,
I like that.
Handmaid's Tale is a good reference, but it's actually the better reference, I think, is Thomas Crown Affair. because that happens in the Thomas Crown affairs. They all wear the bolo hats. And then that's tied in with the art museum.
This is a red sweatshirt, and Handmaid's Tale just came out. It makes more sense.
They were at an art museum
timely.
looking at a painting that was trying to be stolen.
That's okay. Let's just make it about what you want to talk about. What else do you want to talk about, Troy? Let's make it what you want to talk about.
I want to talk about music. Can we talk about music?
Sure. I'm in.
All right. Well, when they go to actually execute the craziest heist in the world from two different teams, we hear Highland Park by Connie Price and the Keystones. That is not anywhere on any music service that I could find. There is a YouTube video if you want to hear the song again. So it won't be in the playlists. But if you want to hear the rest of the music that's on the Blacklist, you can go ahead and head over to theblacklistexposed.com. Got links to Apple Music and Spotify over there for 8 seasons of awesome tunes that you can jam out to.
Now, before we get into all the other characters, I want to talk about this Mrs. French thing. Now, one of our listeners, Rory, who has guested on this show many times, he has, as others I've seen, have a theory that Mrs. French might actually be the Rio Katerina Rostova. Now you don't like this theory. Why don't you like this theory?
I don't like this theory because there's nothing to prove or say or lead or believe or anything one way or the other that this would be Katerina Rostova. Because the better theory is that Mrs. French is actually Mr. French. That's a better theory, my opinion.
Well, couldn't she be Mr. French, but also because it was among Liz's things that contact, or among Liz's mother's things that contact, that it could be Katerina Rostova who set up this Katerina Rostova as the duplicate?
I don't think they would have. I don't think the writers in the show and everything would basically make it like put Katerina Rostova in the open like that without some kind of.
But you
bigger
think
reveal.
They would? Okay.
Especially if the show has told you Katerina Rostova is Katerina Rostova.
I feel like you're way open to completely out there theories, but a completely plausible, sensible, easy to explain theory. You won't even consider.
No, I'm telling you the easy, plausible, explainable theory is that Mrs. French is actually Mr. French. That is a plausible, explainable.
Sure, you're ignoring my other point, my main point, which was
the thousands and thousands of possible options. The Wagoneer's dad's car. The you put the baby in my arms. Like there's more than enough to make the mother theory more plausible than Mrs. French being Katerina Rostova.
That's
very
a stretch. Simply same age range, same. It's very possible. Now it's connected to the duplicate. She's connected to the duplicate. They're very close to the end of the season. There are plenty of options that can make that plausible. And it's very easy. This whole show has a connection to Alias. So you have that whole, and the Americans is fresh in your mind, but the whole spies being trained, come over here to assimilate as families. Red could have been a Russian spy who assimilated as a family, took in Liz as Katerina's kid, raised her as his own or with his family, but his family died. Therefore, he still has a paternal fixation with Liz. All those things can connect. All those things can work, and that's way more plausible than your idea. Sensible.
All of those things connecting has not been a single thing in the show to even suggest that.
Absolutely, everything I just said, there are hints of that as a possibility within the show. Everything I just said.
Well, then you can take that one. I'm not buying. I'm not buying that one.
I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying to rule it out says to me, you're just too stuck on your own. You know what I mean? Like that, just say, I won't even hear that as a possibility because I am a firm believer. I've been saying this for a long time. The main players we wouldn't have needed to see until before the secret is revealed. Like, it's not like it's going to be in plain sight and we had to have met some certain characters. I mean, just like Ilya didn't come up until Ilya was needed for the story. You don't need certain characters until you get to that moment, Now
you mentioned Alias. If there is an Alias connection going on here of any kind, my guess is that it's more like a Project Christmas situation where Red and Katerina and Ilya and other people, maybe even the friend from the East, were part of like a team of children that were trained from the beginning.
I literally just said that.
I didn't hear you say Project Christmas.
I didn't say Project Christmas, but I said they were spies. They were trained. They were brought up as spies and then planted here because it would have been 30 years ago, as parents. And then Masha becomes part of Red, or whoever he is, his family, as his cover. And then his family gets killed, possibly because of something with Katerina or this whole thing with Reddington, and assumes the identity, but also still has a connection to Masha because he was taking care of her. See what I'm saying? Like, I could see that as a connection. I'm not saying that it happened. I'm just saying I could see that as a connection.
Yeah.
They were all raised as spies together. It would explain why they have like a very familiar relationship. Ilya, him, and Katerina could have grown up in the same spy school, and Dom was the handler. Like, all that stuff could connect. There's a lot of theories that are still plausible.
And that theory I totally would buy. But
and French
Mrs. French
could still
being Katerina?
Katerina?
No.
I said possible.
I don't buy that.
Possible.
Not even.
It's more plausible than yours. Just saying, it makes more sense. Like, just off the top of your head, it makes more sense.
I would not even buy that for a ruple.
My God. This is why when people get the stuff stuck and they just can't look at other options, man. All right, let's move on.
It's more plausible that Raymond Reddington is Raymond Reddington and never died than Mrs. French being Katerina.
It's already been ruled out across the board. So it's not plausible. Ruled out across the board.
But if you use that logic, then technically Mrs. French can't be Katerina because they already told you Katerina is Katerina and she's dead now.
No, because Red, by your logic, Red has said she's not. That's not your mother.
But you can't say that the show told you that Raymond Reddington is dead. And then say that
the show did say it several times.
But the show also told you that was Katerina Rostova.
The show said it. Reddington said it. It's confirmed. That's not Raymond Reddington. DNA's proved it. So that's done. That's like a done deal. It's done. This is like one thing that I'm not even saying I even subscribe to it. I really don't. But it's possible. I'm open to it. You won't even hear it.
To me, it's a stretch.
That's because it goes against what you want it to be. No. That's the only reason it's a stretch.
No, it's like
that's the only reason. You heard the first time you heard, you're like, no. You didn't even openly think about it before. You're like, no, can't be it. Nope.
The only thing that even resembles the possibility is the fact that Katerina Rostova read Agnes a book, Mrs. French read Agnes a book. They both acted as nannies.
Well, everybody's a nanny in this show, apparently.
They just come over to Liz's apartment and they become a nanny.
Think so? Okay, well, we'll see what my listeners think. And just saying, hey, doesn't mean you have to subscribe to it, but I think it's important to be open to other things. If you're beholden to one theory, this is what happens, people. You can't be open to anything else. Never, ever lock in.
Do you know what I'm the most open about? Seeing She-Hulk, Agent Park.
Yeah, she did kick Liz's ass.
Yeah.
By the way, she won that fight.
She totally won that fight.
She won that fight. There you go. So that's all she did at this episode. That was it. Park was brought in to be muscle. Aram didn't do a whole lot, but he did make a point that Liz does need a hug. I'm vaccinated, so I'm offering hugs if Liz is open. Then we move on to Wrestler because there really wasn't much for them to do this episode. Wrestler's still on Team Liz, but now I thought she was doubting his loyalty, but she seemed very much still in Wrestler's corner by the end, and he seems very open to her. Like, he really has faith and he believes in her, but he's really doubting Cooper now because Cooper basically duped him. What'd you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think that for a minute that he wasn't going to go call in some backup. I mean, that's Cooper. Cooper made the line and said, I'm going to put an end to this. I'm going to find out who Reddington is. So he's going to do everything possible. So I think Cooper acted in the character moment the way that character should be acting based on the things we've seen so far this season. So I don't blame Cooper for doing what he did. I think that he has to use Diego in order to get it accomplished. And sometimes you have to do things as a leader with your team to say hey, you don't have all of the information for a reason. And I know that that's going to make you feel like crap sometimes, but it's for your own good if you don't know.
I guess. I've kind of felt bad for him because he just felt like an idiot. And plus, he let Liz get away again. I mean, honestly, stop leaving it in his hands if you're really worried about that.
If you want to feel like an idiot, that's the part where you're an idiot. How did you not think that she had an escape plan?
This is a pretty cool escape plan. I didn't see that coming. I was kind of wondering, how's she going to get out of here? I really liked the whole, once she was onto it, like her and her henchmen were just out and they moved fast and they had the plan ready to go. I like that. That's very Reddington, which she has learned from, obviously, over 8 years.
Apparently there's a move in Reddington's arsenal where you become a mom jogger.
A mom jogger, is that what you said?
Yeah.
A mom jogger.
That's what she was. She like literally put her hair
You
up.
can't just be like a regular jogger. You got to be like a mom jogger.
No, she put her hair up in the ponytail, and then she literally had the stroller, and she started jogging down the road to escape. Like
it works.
I want to see Red pull that move.
I'm sure you do. You'd probably love that. That would be great for you. Then we'd be having conversations about how that definitely feeds the theory. Blah, 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 blah. All right, Cooper. Red wants his painting back, as well as this Russian knot. And, of course, there's some duping going on. And to get that, basically, they're going to have to rob the Belarusian museum.
Whoa.
I want to make sure I said that right.
Like, Aaron actually pronounced something correctly for a change.
It's because I wrote it phonetically. It makes it a lot easier for me. And basically to get the Cezanne painting as well as the Russian knot device to find out what Liz is up to. You know, Cooper gives his word to Liz, then breaks it, gives his, he basically manipulates Wrestler. There's a whole lot of manipulation going on in this episode. What did you think about the whole using the FBI once again, getting duped once again, because Red kind of lied to him, even though he said that he wasn't lying to him?
I mean, he lied to them, but did he lie to them?
Yes, he lied to them.
He promised them.
Liz was actually telling the truth. We found out at the end that Liz was right. Red was once again duping them.
Well, duping them, I think, is different than lying. I mean, Red said.
Oh, Jesus. I can't anymore. I can't. I'm done. This podcast is over, guys. You have a wonderful night. I can't.
He said we need the machine to code this picture. He decoded the picture. He gave him the answer. He gave him the cipher. He did everything that he said he wanted to do. And everybody was like, okay, fine.
I have a problem with that, but I'll get to the cipher part when we get there. Because I'm just like, well, that was the first thing I thought of. So I don't know why nobody thought of that until the end of the episode. You know what I mean?
That was going to be like a fake message?
No, that the numbers corresponded to the letter of the alphabet. And that, it's a Russian knot. Maybe check the Russian alphabet.
Oh, the Cyrillic thing.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the first thing.
And that felt like, it kind of made me irritated because I'm like, Aram is the smartest guy in the room. I don't understand how he doesn't put this together right away. Liz is supposed to be her people are smart. Nobody's putting this together. Like, that's the first thing I thought of. I mean, each number corresponds to a letter in the alphabet, either English or Russian, because, Russian knot.
Well, I mean, they haven't had a chance to see U571, the Hunt for Red October, like we have.
It's called the Russian knot. And their numbers. And no number went over 26, I don't think. So I was like, that probably each one is like a letter in the alphabet. Is nobody going to check this?
Especially when the keys on the keyboard are both in Russian and in English.
Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, Troy, that one irritated me. I'm like, everybody here's an idiot. Everybody, shame on all of you. Red deserves to win now at this point.
So then all the Liz haters out there are now going like, Liz is the smartest person on the show because she's the only one that figured it out.
I guess technically. Yeah, technically. All right, so we moved on to Dembe. Belsky has information on Townsend. And, I mean, he puts Red back in touch with Paula. That's really what Dembe did. But he looked kind of jovial this episode, considering Anne died, like, just recently.
Well, I mean, you go visit Paula. I mean, how can you not be happy?
You really like Paula.
I love Paula. She's freaking hysterical. I think she picks up right where Glenn left off. It's like to have
easy. She's not that funny. She's not that entertaining.
Come on, it was like
no.
I got a cream can sauce casserole that I can make for you and all that fun stuff. So it's like the food.
I like her fine. She's enjoyable, but she's not Glenn. No.
Can I get reimbursed for my thing because he wanted to go Dutch?
It's nice that they found a way to work that in, though. Like that's cool. That's very cool. And it's a way to keep Glenn's memory alive, I guess, in some form.
What I think is funny, though, is that she's like Glenn's writing a novel about Raymond and Dembe. And so then she just assumes that their names are Raymond and Dembe, when it's like, well, no, they're still Bill and Steve.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the episode, she actually calls Raymond by his real name. I thought that was cool.
Because she read it. She read the whole thing.
How about a job?
Okay, Townsend. He starts off looking really tough at the beginning. At the end, I feel like he kind of got won over pretty quick. But he kills a bunch of henchmen, or seems like he's going to at the beginning. Has them all lined up with plastic bags. He threatens to kill Liz. Don't disappoint me again. Tells her he dreams about her. What the funk was that about? That was an odd scene, I thought.
I don't think it was sexual in nature. He's like, we were standing there together looking at our victory over Reddington in his grave.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I got that. It was just kind of weird when you tried to kill her earlier, threaten to kill her just a little bit ago. He's an odd dude.
Well, maybe that's why he had a soft spot.
I like his character, though.
Maybe that's why he had a soft spot when she came in to kill him.
Maybe. I like his character, though. What did you feel about that moment? Because I'm of two minds. I like the moment. I wish it would have, I think it needed to be about a minute longer. I really feel like it was a rushed intimidation, for me. I think it needed a little bit more time to sink in that Liz is really threatening him. It worked. I don't have a problem with it. I really feel like it needed about a minute longer.
I felt like maybe it needed something more sly or crafty. Like Liz comes in one door and she's like teasing him and touting him, and it's like, oh, your dream, and we can actually get him in his grave and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, manipulate him a little bit more.
But I want to make one thing clear, and then boom, from behind comes the bag and everything else, and then it's like, you don't work for me.
Yeah, because I don't work for
you. I do work for you.
The throwing the plastic bag, I think, was probably I needed something a little weightier. If you're going to throw something that does not work for dramatic effect, it just does not work for dramatic effect.
I would love to know that behind the scenes filming of that sequence to see like how many times did they have to throw the plastic bag to get it to actually look threatening.
About 1,000, and then Forrest Gump shows up.
That's right.
Think about it. Wait, that's a feather. Sorry, I'm just thinking of things blowing in the wind. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. All right, Liz has a lead. That's what gets this whole thing going. So while the post office is doing their break-in, Liz is doing her own heist. And that's where I was kind of confused because they had me. I'm like, I don't understand why Liz is trying to steal this thing too. Doesn't she already have one? So I'm an idiot. They're both just trying to get to the device first. Did you figure that out pretty quick? I'm assuming you figured that out.
I mean, I knew they were going to the device together, but I thought it was because Townsend had sent her on this quest. But because Townsend was all like, don't fail me again, blah, 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 kicks her out after he puts the bag on her head.
I thought
it was all coming from Townsend. I never picked up on the fact that this was coming from her mom's locker.
Yep.
So, yeah, I could see where the part where it was like, wait, how did Reddington know I was going to be here? Like, that's when I was kind of like, wait, did I miss something? Like, back that up.
Yeah, finally it paid off at the end. But
yes, they explained it all when she actually got to the professor at the thing who used to also be a Russian spy, apparently.
What else was in this locker? I mean, it is literally like the never-ending magic hat where bunnies just keep popping out of it. So is there a maximum amount of space? We're going to have more little nuggets that just come up, and every week it's going to be, and my mom's little sock led me to this Blacklister or something.
I mean, is there like a futon in there? Does she like crash occasionally because she had no place to go?
A futon. She's Ant-Man. She's got a little suit.
A little dorm fridge going on? I don't know.
Anyway. Well, she wants the device to prove that he's decrypting Washington Post articles to decipher messages from his handler. And so they're basically going back and forth. This is so she can prove he's N13. Now, I got to say, like at this point, she's adamant he's N13. The man from the East is adamant he's N13. I know we've debated this back and forth. I feel like I'm a little more convinced he is N13, technically. I know that they're saying it, but, I feel like it's already been confirmed, but we keep hemming and hawing because of everything the show does, where it makes you hem and haw on things. Where are you at with whole N13?
I think he's N13.
Okay.
I mean,
I feel like last week we said we didn't know for sure. Now I just feel like he is.
Because you're just going back to the thing that the show does, right? I mean, you have to.
Yeah, it makes me doubt myself all the time.
I know, because like when he says a fact that nobody knows is true, it's like, well, this is a new character and he seems pretty powerful, so I think what he's saying has some weight to it. But then
it's just like there's still the debate that was it really her mother that died? There's still that debate. Well, clear that up so we know. And because we only got like 7 episodes left of the season. Let's go.
So you mean like her mother was decoding messages in the Washington Post, and Red seemed to understand how you could decode messages in the Washington Post also. So that means they could also be the same person. I'm just saying.
Mr. French could be her mother too, because it's about as likely as what you just said. Because what you just said, nonsense. Yeah, I've said it. I'll say it again. I'll say it all the time. Doesn't make any sense. They'll never get away with it. It's not earned. Let's move on.
The point is who pays for the paper anymore anyway. It's all online.
Yeah, nobody's buying a paper. Come on. But it makes sense. It fits. It's the only way that this works. There has to be a paper. Liz uses her mother's book to decrypt the message. Very handy user manual that she left behind. So good deal. And it spits out numbers. And like I said, now Liz does threaten Townsend and says she can prove it now and that she does not work for him. So do you feel like they're going to be more equal partners going forward? Instead of
I'm like, if I can prove it now, why am I not just showing him the response of the message also? like, hi, I'm just here to threaten you, and then I'm going to go back home. But when you want to know the answer, come on over. I'll have tea on. That seemed a little bit weird to me. Like you throw the paper bag, I throw the chain of numbers at him is what I do.
Well, another thing it just doesn't lack. It lacks impact. You throw the piece of, stop throwing things that don't carry weight. If you're going to throw something at somebody, make it like a pool ball or something.
You stabbed substance. Red in the neck with a pen. You couldn't do something better?
Yeah, just Townsend, he deserves it.
Yeah.
Seriously. Stab him. I hope she kills him at some point. I really do. Well, Red, we open back at the bench because Red's thinking about Anne and her death. So now we do know that she did for sure die. You're right. I was kind of hoping. I was pulling for some emergency surgery. But she's dead. And we got to meet her daughter in this episode, which we'll talk about in a minute. But we also learned about Histius, the son of Lysigoras, who was a Greek ruler of Miletus. So much Greek. In the late 6th century BC, which led to a code that allows Liz to communicate with Townsend, but not really because that's all a lie.
So basically all the Greek stuff was just basically like, this is the guy that was like the first code breaker.
Essentially. Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah. And they built a cipher machine.
They did. And if you didn't, realize one machine jumbles the message, the other machine unscrambles the message. That's why they have to have both machines. We learn that Paula, Glenn's mother, needs Red to stop by because she's got to conduct some business because she needs to borrow like $172 something like that, it was adorable. That's where she learned about Glenn writing the book about Red's shenanigans. And he pays her the money to buy the book and then offers her a job by the end because she has the same knack that her son did, working through AT&T, I think, to find people because she's the one that finds the address for Emma Foster through the phone company, and that's Anne's daughter. So that leads us to, because we kind of already talked about Paula, but that leads us to Anne's daughter. Anne did pass away. Red poses as his lawyer to help make amends to give her daughter $3 million. And yeah, what did you think about that? I actually thought that was a very sweet moment.
Yeah, I thought it was a great scene. I think her not knowing the fact that her mother had this money, I think it's a great assumption on her part to say like, well, maybe this came from the criminal and do I really want this money? And then I also like Red's stance on it. It's like, who cares where it came from? What matters is what you do with it. And I think that's a valid point. That's a great life lesson from Red in general. Like, no matter what happens, it's like what you do with the opportunity. That's on you. It doesn't matter where it came from, whether it was a criminal or not a criminal. I mean, it's almost like that debate we've been having about is Red a bad guy or a good guy? Does it matter at the end of the day if he's a good guy or a bad guy? It just depends on what you do with the information.
Yeah, well, it matters, I think. It was really sad. I really admire that she didn't want the dirty money. Still kind of took it, but she didn't want it. And I'm with her on that. I always wondered like if something like that would I take the money? And as much as I'd love to say, nah, $3 million is a lot. And also, she says to him, a man like that, do you believe he will ever get what's coming to him? And he said, I do. So at least he acknowledges he's got it coming to him because it was really on him. His fault.
Yeah, I wonder what he anticipates on that. Like, if he's anticipating his own death, if he's anticipating something bad happening to Elizabeth, and that's what's actually going to hurt him more, is that if something happens to Liz because of the path she's on. I'm interested to see like what his perspective was when he said "I do."
Oh my God. You're overthinking so much. I think he's saying, yeah, I'm going to get what's coming for me sometime. Someday I will get what's coming to me.
Well, yeah,
for sure.
But what does that mean? Does it mean like I'm going to get it because I'm going to die because someone's going to kill me? Or I'm going to get it because I'm going to feel so much immense pain because of something that happens to somebody else, like I feel right now from Anne's
whatever
loss.
equals the debt. Whatever
Yeah.
equals the debt. That's what I would say. I think he knows it's coming back because he knows he's responsible. So according to everybody that took the poll, Red was responsible. You were incorrect if you voted for Liz.
Because he claimed responsibility. He claimed it.
He claimed it because he knows it was his fault. He should have. Dembe told him, stop
Doing patterns.
All right. Well, lastly, seriously, the numbers corresponding to the letters in the alphabet was the first thing everyone should have thought of. So we can all be code breakers. If you thought of this, welcome aboard. We'll start our own club. But here's what it said, and it's from the Russian alphabet. Decoy worked. Situation averted. And then the message back. It's time. Mobilize assets. Dun, 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 dun. What the hell do you think that means? Endgame?
Endgame. I think we're in the throes. I mean, there's only two numbers at the top, right? We already know Liz is number 1. That leaves number 2 open. So number 2's got to be Townsend.
You think we'll get number 2 this season?
I think number 2 and number 5 are both open on the list, and I think we'll get both of those before the season's out.
Well, la-di-da. Did you look at the episode numbers or something?
No. I am doing everything I can to not be spoiled by what is on the internet, because I'm sure there's something from Spoiler TV or Allie's Tumblr or some other thing out there that's got the whole season mapped out just from the descriptions.
Which is why I stay away from all that stuff and I don't watch trailers.
Right.
Helps a lot. I don't want to be spoiled.
Don't want to know. I know enough as it is to do the podcast. It's like, that's enough.
Speaking of, you want to take a quick second to say thank you to those of you that are supporting the show, that go to Patreon. That's Patreon, patreon.com/theblacklistgsm. Special big thanks to our honorary blacklister, Patricia. Also special shout out to our task force members, Judy and Sharon, Rory, Karen, Bobby Jens, and now Mary, all official task force members. All these people receive cool gifts from us, and you can get a cool gift as well for donating at the $20 level or higher. You want a cool t-shirt or a coffee mug? You know you do. You don't have to stay at the $20 level forever. You can literally just do it for a little bit, and then you get the cool gifts.
And we are also still putting out the episode as soon as the episode is over on Friday nights. If you are a $5 patron, that's right, just $5 gets you access to the podcast before anybody else in the world over at Patreon. That's patreon.com/theblacklistgsm. Throw your $5 in the fedora and you can have an awesome time having all the inside jokes before anybody else. Stay tuned. We got your thoughts, your theories coming up next in Special Agent Intel right after this.
What if you could live your life without limits, where every desire you ever imagined could be fulfilled? Experience Westworld, a show where every human's dark side will be revealed. After watching each episode, listen to Beyond Westworld, a podcast featuring humans and hosts from around the park, diving deep into HBO's illustrative narrative. Every hero has a code, and so do you. Download your itinerary and the show at beyondwestworldpodcast.com or your podcast app of choice.
Hi, it's Megan Boone, and you're listening to Blacklist Exposed on Golden Spiral Media.
Okay, Special Agent Intel, Pale Blue Dot. Given Liz's track record and everything she's said and done on the show, Liz being wrong about everything she believes about Red is a good bet. I do like them making Red more bad and dangerous, but there should also be an extremely complex motive behind everything he does. After 8 long years of waiting for a believable reveal, I hope the writers don't F this up. Okay, jeez. All right, to the point.
We are with you, Pale Blue Dot, and I appreciate you confirming what I said earlier in the episode, which was that Liz does her own thing because she's believing on these little nuggets, and she's always been wrong every single time.
We disagree, but we'll see.
That's why there's the smart guy who said, this is a completely different show this season than it was at the beginning. Doesn't make it bad necessarily, people just put the original stuff up on a pedestal so high and hate how the show is changing. What do you think of that?
I don't really agree with that, but I think it's I don't agree with that. I mean, really, maybe this back half, but the first half of the season was very Blacklistery.
I think there's stuff that they've been doing in the last couple episodes that tie right back into the first season.
I mean, I think some of the stuff where the Blacklisters that they were using for many episodes were very reminiscent of the first season because they were directly from the first season. And, you know, I don't know. I just feel like they have more of a serialized run this season than others, but I don't know if it's really changed that drastically. I mean, most of the stuff is stuff we've seen in other variations before, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's always typically a heist episode at some point in some season, if not one or two. You know, we've seen Park beat up people before. You know, wrestlers pining for Liz as always. Aram's making quippy jokes. I mean, all the beats are there. So there's not really anything different. So
just more serialized.
Yeah, maybe they just don't like the Liz and Red being separated because before they were together. So in that way, it is a little bit different this season.
Sure. Okay. And it's been going on longer. Like she seems determined to fight him this time. It isn't just where she's like, all right, you said forgiven, forgivesies. Okay. So now we've got Iona Vlad. You asked which team are we in the last show? Why am I Team Liz? ? And get a lot of hate on various platforms each time I show support. Man, I feel you. I feel you all the time. I love when people tell me how wrong I am. I'm like, I don't know how you're wrong for an opinion, but cool. But here you go. She continues. What I don't get is why people think it is absolutely fine to have your life turned upside down by someone you have never met and be easy breezy when you find out that 1, your husband is a spy working for the enemy and hired to be with you. 2, that your memory has been manipulated. 3, you are in constant danger because of your parents' and grandparents' unfortunate choices. 4, the woman you think is your long-lost mother is being killed in front of you. I think Liz would have to be a robot to deal with this mess in a way that would please the Spader-loving audience. I don't know if you guys heard that, but that was shade. What? Bip, bip, situation acknowledged. Kudos to Red. Bip, bip. She actually acted out a robot. Quote. I like it.
I'm offended as a robot that you'd read that incorrectly, but
I don't care. She may have stepped over the line, and Red pushed her there, and he showed no regrets while doing that. I'm with you. Remember that at the end of season 4, Liz steps out of the car when Kaplan asks her whose side was she on. Liz chose Red stepping out of that car, but only to be deceived later in an unimaginable way. Constantly being lied to about who her father is, about Red's real identity, everything culminating with the death of Tom. That's a yay, though. And a 9-month coma. Everything Liz does after that point was to find answers in this series of unfortunate events, and whenever she thinks there is some light at the end of the tunnel, there comes Red doing something awful, leaving her alone in the dark again. And so he is selfish, orchestrating whatever plot he is up to, that he even pretends for Liz to have no allies, no support of any kind, not even the task force, as their evidence depends on Red's interest. A small reminder Cooper refused to help Liz after Katarina got killed. So yes, I am shamelessly Team Liz and always will be. She will never be able to have a normal life if she doesn't get those damn answers. Nor will Agnes or any other child of hers, and probably wrestlers, and I'd pay money to see him punch Red in the face. Maybe then his hair will finally move. That's for you. That's not for Tom. That's for you. Well said. Everything you said I completely agree with, and I've been, I think, saying that pretty religiously for a while.
Aaron's working on a script for a play or a movie, potentially. And his pen name is Iona Vlad, just so you know.
Kiss my ass.
No, very good email. Nicoletta Forla says, after watching Misère and listening to the podcast, I'm curious to have your opinion on a couple of things. Maybe I'm wrong, but one of the things that people who consider themselves Team Liz seem to appreciate the most is the fact that she, perhaps for the first time, is represented as a strong woman able to act and stand up for herself. In your opinion, has the fact that she was shown not completely sane in Misère spoiled this aspect of her actions a bit? Would it have been better if, even with some inevitable hesitation in the face of dramatic choices, she had been described to the fullest of her mental abilities without ghosts from the past?
I really don't like the structure of that. I'm not saying I don't like your question. I don't like the structure of the question. I think that implies that a strong woman is always in control and at the fullest of her mental abilities. And I feel like everything she's been through, of course, the stress would be overwhelming. I didn't see anything that said that she was anything less than a strong woman. I just felt like she was overwhelmed, much like Red has been many times. Did you think he was less of a strong man during those times? Probably not. He's just having a hard time. So, no, it didn't affect it at all. I think that was more, it wasn't really to show like she's having a complete mental breakdown. It's just that was the conscious, that was the voice in the back of her head, and it was Kaplan, because they were just trying to work Kaplan in because they wanted to get another guest spot and they couldn't really bring the character back. I really just feel like that was more what it was. It was just more like a storytelling component. So we could get inside Liz's head to see where her mind was at, because there's not many other ways you can do that. So I don't really think it took away from the character. You?
No, I mean, yeah, like you said, like strong woman doesn't necessarily mean that you have to always have it together all the time. Even the greatest of leaders has their, what do you want to call it, mental break, if you will.
Vulnerability.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who's strong who isn't vulnerable. If you say you're not vulnerable, then you're either a liar or you're faking it.
I mean, even if you think you have the best of intentions and have the best answer and executing flawlessly, human nature is always going to second guess, right? So this is just her second guessing. Like, is this the right thing to be doing? Is this what I should be moving forward
Working
with?
it out in her
Yeah,
head.
she's working out in her head. So, I mean, to me, that sounds like someone who's calculated and is strong because she's working it out versus just acting on impulse. Acting on impulse makes you weak. Being calculated makes you strong in that regard. So, no, I don't think she was weak at all.
All right, what's next?
All right. Well, I've always considered the writer's choice to make Liz a sort of a villain very brave, but I would have preferred to see Liz go all the way, even shooting Red in the final scene, knowing full well that they could not kill the character, but maybe the gun could misfire or someone could suddenly arrive on the scene, startle her, maybe make the bullet ricochet or something, but at least she pulled the trigger, I think is what she would have preferred.
I agree with you on that.
Well, a week after its broadcast, Misère is still not much loved by the fans. I think a lot of it is due to making us so fond of a character in one of the best episodes ever, Anne, and then kill her in the very next one. It's true that it's just a show, and that The Blacklist is a drama that has accustomed us to taking nothing for granted, where deaths have always been numerous. However, dwelling only on this 8th season, I noticed that in just 14 episodes, the important deaths, those of characters who have had an important narrative arc, and towards whom the viewers had invested sentimentally, have always been at least 4. Katerina, Dom, Glenn, Anne. We knew this arc was going to be particularly dark, but what I've always loved about the series is that the drama is balanced with the humor. In your opinion, how important is humor in The Blacklist? How far can the writers and the plot push towards tragedy without losing sight of what has made the series so entertaining thus far?
Why don't you tackle it first?
I would say that this episode tonight is a perfect episode of humor must be in the show at some point in time, because without the humor, I don't know if this episode is actually as good as it was, because I thoroughly enjoyed the Rudiger moments, the whole bam, blow up now. like just him talking to the concrete. I laughed the whole time when he was doing that because he's just utterly crazy. Good to see him alive, by the way, because I thought he didn't make it after the punching bag scene. And then Paula was just a gem. Like that stuff, the levity that you have in the show, I think does balance out the grimmer moments. So without the humor, I think the show would actually be in a worse spot.
Yeah, I have already missed Aram being part of the show in a more predominant way, because he definitely, adds a little humanity and humor to the proceedings. So it's kind of been a little bit of a bummer, but that's the show. This particular arc is Liz versus Red. So there's not as much room for everybody else in the post office, it seems like.
Yeah,
I definitely miss the humor.
A good, what do you call it? Find the bad guy joke that he can work into whatever speech he's giving based on what he's tracked down. Because they haven't been in the war room all that much.
Yeah. So I do miss those aspects. I think humor is very important, especially for a dark. Like I don't want it to be the MCU or anything, but I would like some jokes now and again, some lightheartedness for sure.
Right. Well, thanks, of course, Team Red and Anne. There's a big difference between the anti-hero with a 30-year plan that has already led to the capture of at least 150 dangerous criminals and a newbie villain who has set in motion a plan just to avenge his mother and which has so far only killed innocents.
No, yeah, there's a big difference. She deserves revenge more than he does because I think he's basically tortured this woman for 8 years. So, teach their own.
All right.
That's where I stand with it. All right, Mel M. I found the similarity between Anne's house and Liz and Tom's house in the first season a little creepy. And the similarity of Anne's injury to Liz's injury in season 5, episode 8 has got to be intentional. Red saying basically the same stay with me that Tom said to Liz in the same situation. Had the writers run out of ideas or is it intentional? All I remember about that episode is that Tom frickin' died. God damn. That's all I got to say about that.
Highest fan rating on IMDb of all Blacklist episodes ever.
Is the one where Tom dies?
Is the one where Tom dies.
I wonder why that could be. Because he died.
I mean, yeah, there could be parallelism. There's always been parallelism in the show. Maybe it's just like, hey, we had a dialogue and we had to write it in quick and yet don't really know what the intentions are. But I love that you picked up on the similarities because the similarities were definitely there.
And I got to tell you, I don't really go much on the fan ratings for the episodes because it's always any time where somebody bests Red or comes after Red or hurts Red, it's an extremely low rated episode. I know the one where Anne died was extremely low rated, and that's a big reason why, because it hurt Red. So I think that the fans are very passionate. They love Red very much. I know this because I've seen this, because I've said I'm Team Liz in this scenario because I understand where she's coming from. I get where she's coming from. And I've gotten a lot of vitriol over that. And any episode where Red is hurt is seen as a bad one. So,
that's true. That's true. Well, Emily wrote in and said, hello, Troy and Aaron. I am a new watcher, and I started to watch in November and have finally caught up with both the show and every episode of the podcast.
You poor soul.
You are a saint. And thank you, by the way. I love both so much, and it's great to see a podcast be able to continue on so strong for so many years. Now, on the topic of misère, I think it's a lot better than most fans are giving it credit for. I think that it did a good job of showing that while this is who Lizzie is right now, it's not who she's always going to be going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think they showed both sides of Liz, the character that we've known, which I've said throughout this season was very important. I really didn't want them to lose. Like, if they came back and Liz is this hardcore master criminal who's just relentless, I wouldn't have bought it because it's just not who Liz is. Like, she really was debating many of the steps she took, and she didn't want to go as far as she knew she had to go. So that feels like Liz to me. I like it.
Concur.
Kim Cavera. Hi, guys. Last episode, Mzir. I never say it right. We saw Liz assemble her squad of assets and mercs, team up with Red's enemy, and use a couple blacklisters in her attempt to kill Red. Let's say you two geniuses are having a rift, creative and artistic differences, as they say. Which 5 blacklisters would each of you pick for a team to take one another out? Well, all the television you both have watched, how would you kill your podcast partner in an unpredictable way? You can't use the same blacklisters on both teams. Oh, well, then I'll go first. Stewmaster, that's all I need. Done.
But you have to get me first before you can put me in the bathtub.
I'll get you. I can run faster than you.
Well, I actually took the assignment to heart, Kim. Aaron doesn't love you as much as I do. But I said that the courier slips Aaron a note that his wife knows he has been cheating on him. then Smokey Putnam sweet talks Aaron into buying something nice for his wife and bringing it home. When Aaron arrives home with his wife, the cook burns down his house to basically smoke him out. Damn. And then as he's coughing, stumbling out of the house, Mato shows up and just beats his ass because Mato was this big buff guy. And then when Aaron goes to the hospital for his injuries, Miles McGrath uses the nurses to slip him a pill to help him with the pain that instead kills him dead.
It's a good job. When you first said that, I thought you said Mark McGrath, and I'm like, why is the lead singer of that one band going to be involved? I didn't remember all these blacklisters. See, that's why you go to Troy for this.
Yeah, Troy had to go look them up because I was like, man, after 8 years, I'm losing my street cred.
There's so many of them.
So many of them.
Just bust out a Pepe t-shirt. That's what you do. Look at the back.
That's
Bam,
what I did.
Right
That's
there.
exactly what I did.
Is that what you did? Good. That's awesome. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. And now is the time to recommend the Blacklist to your friend, your enemy, or your neighbor. And when you do, please also recommend they listen and subscribe to the Blacklist Exposed podcast. All the case profiles can be found at theblacklisexposed.com and everywhere great podcasts can be heard.
For more great Aaron and Troy hijinks, follow us on your favorite social media outlet. I'm at Troy Heinrichs. He's at Aaron Smirks. And together we are at the Blacklist GSM. Talk about the show, the podcast, or if you'd like a job from Red.
Big thanks for listening. Don't forget to answer our profiling question. Mobilize our assets for what or why?
Or who?
Is Gamora. All right. That's going to do it. You guys have a wonderful night.
You bet. See ya. Until next time, I'm Agent Troy Heinrichs. That's at Troy Heinrichs on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about me, just visit, about.me/Troy Heinrichs.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. You can hear me talking about movies and TV on the Hollywood Outsider podcast, as well as Remake This Movie Right. We are available at thehollywoodoutsiders.com or on Twitter at 5popcorn. Be sure to subscribe, download the app, submit your feedback, but most importantly, keep yourself off of the Blacklist.
The Blacklist Exposed is a Golden Spiral Media production. Find more of our great podcasts at goldenspiralmedia.com/podcasts.